Hey guys, down in Fairfield, Iowa here today, but been working around home too, pulling Stalk Nitrate samples here this morning. We got some really cool projects going with a company called Nutrient Star, essentially independent testing, independent test plots and whatnot. And we're involved in a couple of them where we're looking at nitrogen rate trial, and then a Y drop versus a Coulter system trial as well, which is really cool. So just evaluating what are those nitrogen rates that we need to be putting on, what are the placements, how is that going to impact for later in the year placement on a Y drop system that dribbles your nitrogen right next to the small corn plant versus dribbling that nitrogen right down the middle of the two corn plants where they have to kind of work a little bit further in order to get to some of that nitrogen. So it's an interesting kind of trial, but we were pulling Stalk Nitrate samples today, so wanted to talk about that. So I think in order to be more efficient on the farm, we've got to understand what's going on in the soil first. What's going on in the soil, we can see the basics of it with traditional soil sampling. Now with the Haney test and with these new things, we can get a much better look into what else is going on in the soil. Whereas instead of just looking at spring nitrate samples, looking at one form of nitrogen, now we can look at multiple forms of nitrogen. We can tie in the ammonium, the nitrate, and the organic nitrogen, look at so much more thoroughly into the soil. Same thing for our phosphorus and potassium and micronutrients. We can look so much more thorough in the soil with the soil sampling that we're doing. And then we've been taking a bunch of the plant tissue samples. So if it's in the soil, we need to make sure that those nutrients are getting into the plant. That's the only way that they actually help you. Who cares if they're in the soil? If they're in the soil and they're just being lost to the water, or they're being tied up in the soil and you're not using them, well, that's wasted money. And as a farmer, we can't go out there and waste our money, and wasting nutrients in the soil is like wasting money. So we need to see, are those nutrients that are in the soil actually getting into the plant? And that's why I like the Haney test, is that it shows us what nutrients are actually plant available. Instead of looking at the old system where it was what are kind of the nutrients that are in the soil that should be coming available, we're looking at what's actually available to the plant. The tissue samples show us what is getting up into the plant, and then the Stalk Nitrate samples that we're taking today was how efficient is that plant using nitrogen, especially nitrogen. It's only looking at one form, unfortunately, but those stock samples are. What I think we're going to see is that we have a ton of nitrogen in the plant, and it's going to be very cool now with this trial and whatnot where we have different rates of nitrogen. But I think the upper rates of nitrogen, where we have plenty of units of nitrogen going on the soil, I think what we're going to see there is that those stock samples have a ton of nitrogen still in them because the plant isn't using the nitrogen to actually produce kernels of grain, kernels of corn that we're actually going to sell and make money on. That's the whole point, is you got to be able to raise kernels. We're producing seed that can be utilized into products, unless you're chopping it and feeding the whole plant to a cow or whatnot, or using it for cellulosic ethanol, and there's some other tools. But we are trying to produce grain. In order to do that, you have to have the nitrogen as the building blocks of amino acids, which are the building blocks of enzymes and a protein. And that protein is what gives that corn a lot of value, especially as we feed it to an animal or whatnot. And we also have to have the starch, that carbohydrate content in the corn. That's where the energy comes from. Sugar, carbon, the basics of sugar. And the issue is that with a lot of nitrogen, we're producing big plants that have a lot of chlorophyll, and they look really green, they're big, they grew super fast this year, we had good conditions for it. But then all that sugar that's being produced in the plant from photosynthesis is not then being converted into the kernels. Some of it might be, but there's a lot of it that's not. And the missing piece is the micronutrients, good soil health leading to good plant health. That's where you have all this disease and everything. Stuff's falling down, the plants just look awful out there. And a lot of stuff has fungicide and it doesn't matter. And the health is not there, that we can't use just the kind of catch all the medicine to be able to go out there and attempt to fix it, because it's not. It's not getting it fixed. We've got to have it start with the soil, evaluate better soil, producing better plants that utilize nutrients more efficient, help you to save money, make more money at the end of the day, produce a better quality crop to feed more people, feed more animals, and improve nutritional values all the way through. So we'll keep in touch on what the nitrogen values actually end up being in those plots. It'll be really interesting. I definitely encourage you to go and do stock nitrate samples yourself, or let us know. We'd love to be able to help you out as well. So thanks.